Does the war only take place on the actual front line? In other words, in today's example, does the Russia-Ukraine war take place only on the front line? Of course not. The war is taking place on a major front. Hello, the Pioneer viewers. I hope you're healthy and well. Today, I would like to share with you a very remarkable development. So much so that even we could not believe that what we learned when we reached this report was true, and we investigated it for a long time. As a result, we reached the information that our findings and allegations were correct. The Ukrainian army continues its offensive operations with great vigor. In recent days, Ukrainian special forces carried out a very critical operation. As you know, the Wagner group returned to the front line. The operation of the Ukrainian special forces was also directed against the Wagner group. But was the operation in Bakhmut? Was it in Donetsk or Zaporizhia? None of that. The Ukrainian special forces operations was in Sudan. So what are the details of this operation? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer, we continue to comment on the developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war and convey them to our viewers from the many parts of the world. Our biggest source of motivation during these endeavors is your comment. Your comments motivate our team very much. Please continue to comment on our content in the comments. Let's start if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. A Ukrainian aircraft recently took off from Kiev. No one had any information about the passengers of the aircraft. The plane was actually a civilian aircraft. However, there were Ukrainian Special Forces soldiers on the board. The soldiers did not have any equipment with them. There were about 10 of them. Some of them were traveling to Sudan, disguised as businessmen and some as tourists. And why? There have been critical events in African countries in recent months. As you know, the Russian Federation is trying to expand its sphere of influence in Africa. Coups have taken place in African countries in recent months. In the vast majority of these coups, Russian-backed armies overthrow legitimate governments and establish military government. These governments received weapons from the Russian army, received military training from the Wagner group, and made the resources in their countries available to the Russian companies. In this way, the Russian Federation expanded its sphere of influence in Africa. This was a great threat both to African countries and Western countries. This threat needs to be eliminated. Who should do this? Of course, the Ukrainian army, which has enmity with the Wagner group. Ukrainian Special Forces personnel who traveled to Sudan on a plane disguised as a tourist and businessman recently went there to strike a blow to the Wagner group. As soon as the Ukrainian Special Forces personnel landed in Sudan, they were contacted by Ukrainian intelligence personnel who were already there. They carried out reconnaissance activities in the region for a while. They followed the military bases used by the Wagner group. Last night, the operation decision was made. Disguised, the Ukrainian Special Forces personnel put on their equipment and took action. The operation was followed by the unmanned aerial vehicles moment by moment. The images were shared with the public by Ukrainian sources. At night, Ukrainian Special Forces personnel mobilized and raided the Wagner military base. There were about 30 Wagner personnel. The building was surrendered on 4 sides. Ukrainian Special Forces personnel were present at all entrances and exits of the building. So, the member of the Wagner group had nowhere to escape. Moreover, the Wagner group did not notice the approaching Ukrainian Special Forces personnel. Ukrainian Special Forces launched the operation with RPG fire. A room full of Wagner militia members was hit by RPG-type missiles. A Ukrainian sniper was also observing the building from a dominant position and following the Wagner personnel. After the RPG shot, Ukrainian Special Forces personnel fought with the Wagner militia from outside the building for some time. Then they entered through the 2 doors of the building and narrowed the area of operation. According to the information we received from the region, the clashes between the Ukrainian Special Forces and the Wagner group inside the building were quite fierce. The clashes started late at night and continued until the early hours of the morning. During these clashes, all Wagner personnel in the building were destroyed. In addition, a large number of critical information and documents belonging to the Wagner group were seized in the building. The document containing this information were sent to Ukraine. In addition, equipment belonging to the Wagner Group was also seized. Allegedly, the equipment of the Wagner Group was handed over to the local government. This operation carried out by Ukrainian special forces surprised you too, didn't it? It surprised us too. It is especially remarkable that the operation took place in Sudan and that the Wagner group was destroyed here. As you will remember, Vladimir Putin, the head of state of the Russian Federation, characterizes an official state and official army, namely Ukraine and the Ukrainian army, as terrorists. And the Russian administration claimed that terrorists would be destroyed. Ukraine, on the other hand, gave a lesson to Russia by publishing these operations. While publishing these operations, Ukrainian sources used the following statements about the operation. Terrorism is a great threat to the whole world. Yes, it is. Terrorism will be destroyed whether it is found. No one should have any doubts about it. With these words, Ukrainian sources make a rather ironic statements about the sources of the terrorism. The state terrorism practiced by the Russian administration is clearly stated by the Ukrainian sources. The events taking place in African countries with the cooperation of the Russian administration and Wagner are now also on Ukraine's radar. Ukraine is also following this region. We have already mentioned at the beginning of our report, the war is no longer on the front. The Ukrainian army is determined and ready, whether there is an opportunity blows are struck against the Russian army. Russian sources are just as surprised as we and you are, because Russia generally propagandized that its global power is so great that its activities cannot be prevented. However, this operation carried out by Ukrainian Special Forces personnel is very damaging to this image of Russia. The Russian army is already suffering heavy losses against the Ukrainian army on the main front line. While the Russian public opinion is not yet ready to face even these losses, this blow to the Wagner group in Sudan has created a great shock. Russian official sources and Wagner official sources have still not made statements on the subject. The Russian army is struggling with major problems on the front line. The Ukrainian army continues to offer great resistance. As you know from our map reports, one of the strategies of the Ukrainian army was to constantly expand the front line. However, it was quite surprising that the front line was expanded so much and extended to Sudan. The Ukrainian army is in pursuit and ready. It is responding to the Russian army and Russia's imperial aims in every field. We think that the repercussions of this surprising operation will continue for a long time. What do you think? How do you think the operation carried out by the Ukrainian Special Forces personnel will affect Russia? How do you assess this operation? Do you think there will be more Ukrainian operations against Russia's presence in Africa? Will these operations lead to changes in the main front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.